Welcome back to Newsday. Sarah Palin, the Republican vice presidential candidate in the 2008 U.S. elections, has failed to make a political comeback despite the backing of Donald Trump. Ms. Palin, who was once governor of Alaska, was defeated by her Democratic opponent, Mary Peltola, in a special election in the state's only seat in the House of Representatives. Ms. Peltola will be the first Alaskan native to serve as a lawmaker in the Congress for the state. The race was to fill a vacancy left after the former office holder died. The seat is up for grabs again in November.
We have just begun, and it's a fight for what is right for Alaska and for our nation. And I do repeat that you don't need a title, you don't need an office to make a difference. So we're going to get out there using whatever tools and forums and formats that we have to fight for what's right.
Well, just a tremendous sense of gratitude and appreciation for the people who've put trust in me to fill out the remainder of Congressman Young's term. Like you said, he's represented Alaska very well for the last 49 years, and it's just a tremendous honor to come in and finish out the remainder of his term. And I intend to be, in so many ways, really trying to live up to the legacy that Don laid for Alaska and champion and work for all Alaskans.
For more on this election result, we can cross live to the United States and join our ICE correspondent, Rotimi Kade. Rotimi, thanks so much for joining us on Newsday. So Sarah Palin loses the special congressional election in Alaska. Is this to fit a surprise?
Well, a very good question. I think it's a big surprise because Sarah Palin was coming on the backs of the fact that she was once a governor of the state, though she resigned during the end of her term. And of course, her popularity grew. Don't forget in 2008 when she was picked by former presidential John McCain. And ever since, she has been part and parcel of the Republican caucus in terms of the national politics. But in this election, she outspent our opponent, Ms. Peltola, by 4-1, which means that she was expected to actually win. But unfortunately, the Alaskan electorates actually have other things that they are considering. Which Ms. Palin couldn't meet, and which, of course, her opponent, Ms. Peltola, actually emphasized in abortion rights. Don't forget that Palin actually endorsed the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and majority of Alaskans actually voted 60 to 40% in favor of abortion in Alaska. Up till now, it's still a major issue over there. But they're also looking at the possibility of having a native. This is the first time you're going to be having a native that will be representing Alaska at the national level. But this is not over yet because it's a special election just to complete the term of Congressman who has been in Congress for the past 50 years. And there's going to be another election in November. But the question a lot of analysts are asking is perhaps maybe the popularity of Ms. Palin will dwindle before the November elections, which will see Ms. Peltola perhaps maybe losing a seat or perhaps continuing for that position for the next 2 years.
Are there any clues from this result as to how both the main parties are going to fare in the U.S. midterm elections come November?
I think with this victory, Democrats are a bit optimistic because this is coming on the runs of another victory, which was held in New York Congressional District. So already, I think the Democrats are counting their victories, even though it's minute. They are saying that as against what many polls are saying that they might not retain the House in the November elections. They are seeing some of these little gains here and there as positives that's going into that elections will definitely make them, put them even at a more advantageous position. And the fact that Donald Trump, the former president, has been a factor in even these elections that was held because she endorsed Sarah Palin, most likely we may see such trends, going even much, much further. Now, what are some of the critical things that is on the people's mind as far as the November elections is concerned? Things have gradually shifted from what we were discussing even earlier this year, which was inflation and unemployment, now to abortion rights and gun control. And that on these two issues, Democrats are doing pretty well. But of course, if the President Trump's popularity is still very relevant in in the November elections, most likely we may see some, gains on the part of the Democrats because they're going to emphasize on that, or we may see also little gains. But I think right now it's too close to call when you look at the poll.
Well, Rotimi, earlier we reported on Mississippi's water crisis in the city of Jackson. What's the latest?
Well, currently what we're seeing long lines called the super sites that was set up by the governor for people to actually bottled water, I should say, for them to be able to drink, perhaps cook or brush their teeth with it. We have seen that these lines are actually not dwindling. We're seeing more people coming out to get this water that was provided. And the governor also said that, well, it might take a little while for us to be able to fix, the water system, but it's not going to be anytime soon. So while the governor was saying, on one hand, the Democrats saying something on the other hand, saying that before the end of this week, they may likely see the water system being restored. But again, we're seeing support from the federal government, which Biden administration has promised that they will deploy more National Guard troops down to Jackson for them to be able to assist them in ensuring that they alleviate whatever sufferings that they might be going through at the moment.
Now, Rotimi, we understand that locals are blaming a lack of funding for this crisis. Is there a racial element involved in this, saying that it's a predominantly black city?
Well, there's absolutely no evidence that that's the reason why they're having a little bit of development, the slow responses in terms of the rescue mission and the humanitarian help or services. But I think the city of Jackson in this for a very long time, and nothing has been done. I think the state in itself is actually facing some, natural disaster issues. So perhaps maybe there's no enough funding that can go around. That's what we're seeing. But I mean, some may want to play that card of the racial card because when you look at the city of Jackson, it's just about 150,000 people, and 80% of the population are black. And they are one of the worst county in terms of poverty ratio in the country. So some may want to say that, but obviously there's no facts to the fact that, yes, that is the real problem. But from what the government said, they are playing their own parts to ensure that that is resolved as soon as possible so that people can go about their normal lives.
Well, thank you so much for your analysis and for joining us today, Rotimi.